All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Maggie Miller. I'm here with ILS. Welcome to the COVID-19 homeschooling webinar, subtitled, I Didn't Sign Up for This. This will be brought to you by Kate and Michael Ortman, who have been longtime ILS associates, who have wonderful experience with homeschooling, and who will be teaching us all a little bit more about how to deal with this time that we are in. So good morning, you two. Thank you so much. And I will go ahead and pass it off to you.
Thanks for having us, Maggie. We're excited to do this. I know Michael and I, this is my husband, Michael.
You?
we were homeschoolers for many years, from 1 to 6 of our kids, but we signed up for it. This has been thrown upon all of you, and I hope some of these tips and tricks will help you navigate these times.
Absolutely. And this came about. I work for Comcast, NBC Universal, parent company of Sky, parent company of NBC, parent company of Xfinity. And I was in a small team meeting a couple months ago after this got started, and a couple of my colleagues were struggling with homeschooling. And I happened to share on one of the Zoom meetings or MS Teams meetings that we had homeschooled for more than a decade, a long time ago. Next thing I know, my boss's boss has scheduled this massive lunch and learn for us to do this. So I said, Kate, we got to do slides, we got to do something. And we pulled this together, and it went well. And then a couple other Comcast groups caught wind of it, and then ILS caught wind of it. So here we are. That's how this came about. So why don't we just jump into it and give you a little background on who we are and why we bring this to the table for our friends at ILS, and offer you some general tips and tricks. Okay.
First of all, I'm going to step in. I want to say we are very, very proud to be providers of ILS Focus and the Safe Sound Protocol. We've been long times Brain Train America, which is my company has been using their programs for about 10 years and have seen miraculous breakthroughs with utilizing, especially the focus unit, because we've had that for a while. And you had this particular group that you're listening here, you do have such a great opportunity with ILS to really help your brain and stay connected with ILS. They've got something special here.
So when we did this for the first time, a colleague of mine at Comcast sent me an email, and she said, this isn't homeschooling and working from home. This is take your child to work day every day, and we have to get creative on how we're going to solve this. This is not a solution we would recommend for anyone, but we certainly understand the temptation as people try to keep their kids behaving and engaging in work activity and trying to engage in homeschooling. It is a challenge. It is really hard. But let me give you a little idea of who we are. So this was our family together for the last time in person back on March the 8th. Days later, a couple of them, the two in the front row with their dog, moved to Texas, and the tallest one in the back with the green hair, she moved into her own apartment. And so that was us on March the 8th. And that was occasion of a birthday party. We have one, our family's too large to have a birthday for each individual. So once every 3 months, we get together as a mob and have a birthday cake. The kids love the goofy hats, the adults don't, but they do it anyway because they're good sports. We share this picture with you for this reason. The young man in the middle in the orange shirt is our oldest son. The woman on the right is his wife. And they met when they were 12-year-olds homeschoolers. And they couldn't stand each other. But we share this with you because it turned out okay. They both got full rides to college scholarships. He went to West Point, she went to Michigan State. They didn't reconnect personally until he was on his second deployment in Iraq. And the rest, as they say, is history. So they've all worked out, even though they were homeschoolers and got together. So as I said earlier, this was us on the 8th of March, and 2 weeks later, this was us. And too familiar of you that we've all seen socially and otherwise, but we were scattered hither and yon, and that was the best we could do. It did remind us when we saw this image, as it may have some of you, that the Brady Bunch was way ahead of their time. I mean, they knew in the 1970s about this 9-box view of the world. Maybe the only person on this call who had a teenage crush on Marsha Brady. So no, we didn't start homeschooling in the 70s. We did start homeschooling in the 90s, and this was us in the 90s. Just Kate and myself and 6 kids, and we didn't homeschool all 6 for the entire 11 years. We did at least 1, usually around 3, and on occasion, all 6. And that's pretty comparable to trying to do a full-time job and homeschool and discipline your kids all at once. It was pretty chaotic. And along the way, we learned some things. Kate learned a lot too about brain health and about learning differences. And it really spawned a business that became Brain Train America, not only because of the homeschool experience we had with our own children, but then later in life, 2 of our sons had significant brain issues. Greg, that you see on the bottom left there, suffered the first of his 6 concussions on the football field, had multiple brain injuries and a lot of learning difficulties and a lot of life difficulties as a result of that. And it caused Kate to really be inspired to go out and learn more about how the brain works and what we can do to help it perform better and help people perform better on the field, in the classroom, and in life. Daniel, you see there on the right, had a KRI1 malformation that required massive brain surgery 10 years ago. Daniel now works at Brain Train America. He certainly has learned a lot about brain health and brain recovery. Because as Kate embarked on trying to help him recover from that massive surgery, she discovered a huge lack of resources and really investigated and discovered tools that would become Brain Train America. And this is some of the young people that she works with day in and day out at BTA, some of the doctors that work with her on our advisory board, and also see some of their patients and clients with some of the tools that are available. There you see a number of them wearing their focus units and trying to improve their way about the world. So before we get into our tips and tricks, I do want to kind of remind everyone to try to, in this very, very difficult time, how to be optimistic. And it was Winston Churchill who said back a long time ago, the pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. I think what you're going to hear from us in the next few minutes is a very optimistic view, trying to find opportunities in this incredibly difficult situation that's been thrust upon us as we try to get to know our kids better, to learn more about how they learn, and try to make this not just survival, but something that we can look back on someday and feel better about it. So without any further ado, shall we get to our tips and tricks?
We shall.
All right. In no particular order. Well, yes, they are in order. I was going to say here. Let's start with number 10. What, Kate, is a time timer?
So we're going to start with a very basic, practical analog kind of thing, which is available on Amazon and many different places. It's the time timer. So when I was homeschooling all of my kids, it's kind of like when you got a Zoom meeting and you have your 6-year-old that wants attention for something. They don't understand time. But if you see time, they can see how long they have to wait. And you don't underestimate seeing visual time elapse for your children and giving them patience to wait for you. When I was homeschooling, I had my Brad, who you saw that went to West Point. He homeschooled some of the curriculum we did in middle school. He actually took AP exam in high school for. So I took homeschooling seriously then, but I had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. They didn't understand time, but if they did understand that they had to wait till the red was gone before they interrupted me, and start with 5 minutes and letting them learn that they can wait. And then you do need to then engage with them. We don't know what our schedule is these days, but giving them some control over how long they have to wait, I think will help alleviate some of their anxiety.
And I should have prefaced this, Kate. I pause for a moment. We respect and recognize the fact that those of you attending this webinar are perhaps all over the place in terms of the age of your children, the number of your children, the amount of support you have in the home, the amount of guidance and support you're getting from your school system. So we're going to try to keep this very high level in general so that we can speak to different age groups. But we're going to have plenty of time at the end for Q&A if you want to ask more specific questions. We're not going to have a long list of websites to help you. We figure that you've done plenty of that in the last couple of months, but really try to present some broad categories of what we think can help. So that one, get that off there. That one analog tool, the time timer, is the only real specific we're going to have for you. So continuing on, number 9, journaling and blogging. The internet will forever remember the heroes and horrors of this time. But it will not remember unless we take action, what went on and what you were feeling and what you were doing in your own home. So we cannot encourage you enough, whether it's a homeschool curriculum or just the way we're dealing with life these days. Journaling, blogging, you know, we've embedded there a way the Marsh family from Kent, England dealt with it by, if you haven't seen that video, we certainly encourage you to go out on YouTube and have some fun. But challenging your children to journal, to write, to blog, whatever's comfortable is really important. Why is it important, Kate?
Well, it gets them thinking, and we want our children to be able to engage and remember and be, okay, I'm going to stop. We're one of the best blogs that our children did. Again, I'm going to go to our oldest two because they were like this. I don't know if any of you have more than one children that argue a lot.
Sibling rivalry.
We had a bit with our two oldest, and so one of the best journal blogs we had was when they had to write what they liked and disliked about each other. The dislike was very easy for them to write, but they had to write a comparable what they admired, what they liked doing, what they thought, and they had to go back to the drawing board a couple of times. And you know what? It really worked, and we still bring it out and read it once in a while. So it reminds us what the time was like back when they were middle school boys arguing, to that they were best man at each other's wedding. So there's this journaling and what they felt like then, and this is a wonderful time to, you know, get to know what your children are thinking, and to get some writing in.
You know, we're hearing lots of things about the fact that kids are going to suffer because of this. It does not have to be true. The schools that your children normally attend, and you hope will soon go back to, are very important. And it's important that we listen to them, that we respect them. I think we have an appreciation for them that we never had before. But it's important at this time not necessarily to rely on them to manage your child's day and manage every aspect of their learning that's going to be going on during this experience. How come?
There are children and we know them best, especially in this time. We have to be really clued in to, are they anxious? Are they upset? If we push through with all of their to-dos and don't listen and connect with our children, they're not going to be able to learn, and we're going to have another problem later. So we need to listen to what they're doing. We have to tap into what the schools are offering us, but we also have to rely on ourselves as parents as to what is best for our children right now.
Okay, we hear it all the time. Structure, structure, structure. That's our niece, Elle, in the bottom left there, who within minutes after finding out she was going to be home all day, every day for weeks or months, started making her list. But not every child is like that. Not every parent is comfortable with that. How can we help?
Giving them some structure will help them feel in control and safer. So that structure and being accountable to their day will help them with learning good habits. And good habits is what's going to get us forward. So having that structure of the things that they want to accomplish, using something like the time timer. Again, I gave one to each of my kids, that this is what I think it's going to take me, so they can kind of estimate time. But that, okay, so you were going to, I'm looking at the one on the left, 10 a.m. we were going to do this. Okay, but I'm a parent and I now have, my boss wants to do a Zoom meeting with me and we need to be flexible, students, okay? So our children need to know that this is, again, a rough structure of what we want to accomplish in the day. This is about the time we need to do, so this gives them some control, but they need to know, especially for our working parents, that we have to have some flexibility within this structure.
Zoom, MS Teams, curriculum, websites, class meetings, teacher conferences, we're all glued to a screen now. This is the new thing that we're all doing. I work for a technology company, so some would think this is heresy to suggest it, but at some point, we've got to turn it off. Maybe only for a few minutes at a time, but at some point, we've got to turn it off. How come?
What our children need is, they need to spark what's great about children: imagination, creativity, thinking, learning outside of the box. exploring. That's one of the gifts, the creativity of childhood that we need to tap into. If they're only absorbing through screens, we're going to diminish that for them, and that would be such a shame. So as much as, you know, at BTA, we use a lot of technology to help improve the brain function, but I also want to limit it at times, make sure that we have family times and we connect with our children. I want you to, Mike, let's read some of these, how to get your kids to do their chores.
You do the first couple.
Number 1, good morning, my darlings. Can't find your phones? So sorry. If you do a thorough enough job cleaning the bathroom, their location will be revealed. Love, Mom.
You again.
Oh, me again? Nice job cleaning. Your phones are in a place you've likely never seen. The bottom of your hamper. Unfortunately, they are dead. Empty the dishwasher to reveal the location of the chargers.
Don't you just love treasure hunts? The chargers are in the empty cereal box one of you put back in the pantry. And finally, having fun yet? Take out the trash and recycling and come find me to get the new Wi-Fi password. Yeah, the kids can be doing chores. It's not just about getting their schoolwork done, and that's all part of the structure we talked about too. So all kinds of fun ways to limit tech. Put your mask on first. You know, we hear this every time we board a plane and we're traveling with children. The flight attendant is giving us pre-flight instruction, telling us that if the oxygen masks drop and you're traveling with small children, put your mask on first, because you need to take care of yourself before you can help a child in need. That is especially true with homeschooling.
Please put your mask on. You're not going to be able to be there for your child. And also to monitor good habits so that your child can, as they become adults, can do the same for them. So we need to sleep, we need to eat right, hydrate, exercise. Those are the basics that we need to do. You know, try not to let a clock or calendar dictate your approach to schooling. This in particular was super important to me, and it was a shift when we adopted our youngest child. She came New Year's Eve. I was already homeschooling 5 other children, and all of a sudden, my apple cart got all overturned. And so we had to change to homeschooling from 8 to 11 o'clock for the older ones for a couple of months. As that adjustment phase, we had to utilize the weekend. We had to do things differently and not go by the calendar that I had done so well that first semester. So we have to do that. We have to do the quantity sometimes is more important than the quality, not quantity. And we also very much need a time to quiet our own mind so that we can be there for our children.
Exercise for mom, dad, caregivers is important. It's important the kids get exercise too. And especially if we've relied on team sports in the past and those may have been shut down, we're gonna have to get creative about how to go about it. Why do the kids need exercise too?
Well, exercise is great for the brain. It's great for improving the blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, that upper thinking. They're going to feel, you feel better when you exercise. Sometimes the hardest part about exercising is just getting started. We have to think small sometimes. It's just like doing a couple of minutes, do a couple of jumping jacks before we get back, or whatever it is. But if we can instill this as a daily part of our children's lives and our lives, we will feel better. And as they feel better, they'll be able to get their work done at a quicker, much easier. I want to point out the special one in the middle with those 4 boys doing yoga class. They're doing yoga during the first week of quarantine. Those are 4 of our grandsons.
Yay. We talked earlier about the importance of the opportunity we have to learn more about our own children. Maybe they are in school 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, and that time frame is now out the window. And maybe they're now getting their schoolwork done, depending on the school system and the amount of guidance and your child in record time. But you've got an opportunity now to find out what they want to learn, that maybe the teacher who's got 20 kids in their class can't necessarily address on an individual basis. But for this brief moment in history, you have that chance. What does that really mean for families, Kate?
Well, one of the things that we want to instill in our children is learning, loving learning. and so sometimes we have to look, when I mentioned earlier, one of my sons took an AP class and what he learned in 8th grade, that was only because there was something that was a passion that he wanted to learn about. I didn't understand what he was learning, but he wanted to explore because it was something that interested him. So, and if it interests them, they'll go further. So, and kids can have many, many different passions. One of your,
Yeah.
tell me.
I have a coworker who's got a 13-year-old daughter. We were doing a session a few weeks ago, and he said, "My daughter gets her work done in 2 hours. What am I going to do with her the rest of the day? She just wants to chat with her friends." And I suggested, "Well, what are her interests?" And he said, "Well, she's interested in cooking, in sports, and in shoes." I said, "Well, why don't you have her binge watch The Last Dance," which is the documentary on ESPN about the world champion Chicago Bulls featuring Michael Jordan, and have her research and write a paper on the impact Michael Jordan had on the shoe industry. That ties together two of her passions. And he's like, "Oh, that's a great idea." I said, and then maybe she could go binge watch episodes of the Kids Baking Championship on Food Network, and then research one or more of the participants and write a little story about some of the young people that participate in the show. Point is that he was listening to what her interests were, he was responding to what her interests were, and letting her do some curriculum work or schoolwork that would build on those passions and say, wow, this is really a thing. It's not just something I'm interested in, but I can do some schoolwork around it too.
We Zoom with our granddaughters yesterday, and they have taken a French class, and every week they want to tell us something new that they learned in French. So again, something they're interested in.
And the other opportunity we have before us is to learn how they learn. Maybe we don't have that opportunity to observe it firsthand when they're in a school, regular school, but we do now. And what kind of connections does that mean for families, Kate?
So this is where we really want to stress that what I call the ear-brain, eye-brain, and body-brain connection. The ear-brain is so often missed, and that's when do you actually hear? Does the brain hear what the ears are hearing when the ears are hearing it? Or do you say, "What did you say?" or "huh?" Like they look like their children aren't listening. Whereas actually their ears are hearing it, but it's taking so long to get to the brain that it's just too much work sometimes, so they don't, it looks like they're not listening, where it's actually taking them more brain power to hear. They say, "What did you say?" You ask to go upstairs and get the cat, and they come downstairs with a hat. And that's what they heard. So there was did the brain hear what the ears hear accurately and correctly all the time? That's an ear-brain disconnect. An eye-brain, they might see perfectly well with their eyes, but they can't process with their eyes. When they're reading, their eyes are jumping all over the place, or one eye is kind of doing their own thing. They're not converging to the right point on the page. And that's called an eye-brain disconnect, that the eyes aren't processing correctly. I've had many clients that see 20/20 that actually can't process well with their eyes. They lean on the table and actually cover one eye when they're reading. They don't read the whole page. They don't like reading. And that's an eye-brain issue. A body-brain issue, well, an elite athlete has to have incredible body-brain organization. So when a baseball player goes to bat that ball, that their brain and their body, they're so synchronized. But we also need to be synchronized to be able to not to be tripping over the stairs, or for our children not to be the last one picked in the school playground when they're back on that school playground. So we want our body brain connected well. Part of that integration is actually the back part of your brain. It's your cerebellum. It holds 50% of the neural connections of your brain. I learned a lot about that when Dan had a 9-hour surgery on the cerebellum. So that's the part of the brain that he had surgery on, which is why I did a lot of research and exploring how to help that part of the brain. But if your children looks like, and it has nothing to do with their intelligence, but there's like a disconnect, that they're not reaching their goals, kind of explore that there might be a weakness, not even a disability, but a weakness in one of those areas.
All right, Kate, bring us to the finish line.
Now, this is the absolute most important part of the presentation. You can skip everything I said
No,
before.
you can't skip it.
But if things don't go well and you do tip number 1 well, you will be successful during this time. The most important thing you can do during this time for your children is to make them feel safe, connected, and loved. And you might think your children feel this already, but this is a big paradigm shift with what's going on in the world. And this is a picture from the ILS ebook. If you don't have it, you can get it off the ILS. They'll send you a site, or we will. But the vagus nerve is the longest nerve of your body, comes off the 10th cranial nerve of your brain all the way to your gut. If it becomes dysregulated, and many of you have heard of that fight, flight, freeze response, that and it's really hard to learn if you're in that set. And during this time, we want to be very careful that our children, the stress and anxiety that our children have doesn't dysregulate the vagus nerve. One of the things that is so important is to make them have this connection. And that's kind of what I went back before and said, listen to the schools, we need to follow the schools, but the connection and feeling safe is more important, because if number 1 is done well, when they go back to school, they will be set for learning, because their brain will be able to absorb and catch up what they may have missed. But if you do all of the curriculum and every I is dotted and T is crossed, and they do not feel safe, connected, and loved, all their future learning will be more difficult for them. One of the things that you have, and I'm going to put a pitch in for ILS, is the focus unit will help them regulate that vagus nerve, improve their auditory system, and help with this process. But as parents, we need to be connected with our children in order for them to feel this. And this is the most important part.
And so, there we go.
That's it.
We know you didn't sign up for this, but you've been navigating these troubled waters now for the last few weeks, months, and you've got this. And hopefully you're embarking with confidence. I know we all want it to end soon, but maybe some of these general ideas can reinforce or validate things you're already doing in your home. So with that, I think the chat feature is open. And Maggie, if you've got any questions you want to help moderate, we'd be happy to answer any.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. That was so wonderful. I had a smile on my face that entire time. Thank you so much for sharing your past experience and those lovely tips. I'm sure it's helpful for a lot of our attendees that are joining us today. We have some wonderful questions. I do want to just say, as I'm reading them off, there's both a chat box as well as a Q&A box that you guys are welcome to type in your questions as we go through some questions here. So someone had a question. It sounds like they are doing the Focus Home program. And it says, how can I incorporate the focus system into my homeschooling curriculum? Do you guys have any tips on how they're able to incorporate those two pieces together?
I like to start during the morning with the focus unit. Even if you're just doing for 15 minutes, sometimes we talk about goals, and the goal is to get the listening in. Sometimes for our parents, when they're first starting, it's just getting it plugged in, know where it is, and putting it on your head for the calming for 5 minutes a day. But our real goal is to try to get 3 to 5 hours of listening in, so in a week. So how do we do that? If we start with the listening, first thing in the morning, it actually calms that nervous system, and they'll be better prepared for learning. So, if they can do some jumping jacks and do a little bit of some of the ILS exercises, there's, they go for a walk, they walk the dog, they do their chores, make their bed, undo the dishwasher, all those good things while you're doing 15 minutes. What we like to say is, if we can do 15 minutes of activity in the first part, and then sit down, it's not the best way, but let them do the first 15 minutes of their homeschooling with the ILS on their head. The easy work, no screens, but if they're organizing their days or they're writing out their list, that can be done. sometimes we have to be creative to make sure we get the listening in. So starting it with it first thing as a foundation, again, that's that tip one, making them feel that safety, regulating the vagus nerve. So if we can do that in the very beginning of the day, I think it would be super important for your homeschool day. I also want to make sure you put your oxygen mask on. Do your ILS yourself. It's wonderful.
Great, thank you. And to piggyback off of that, we had another question. You guys had mentioned how important exercise and that movement piece is. I know that that's a component of the focus system. What are some of your favorite movement exercises or activities to do for the focus system?
A starting point is what's in the playbook, but we do a lot of our clients use Sworkit because Sworkit's an exercise where they can kind of customize your own exercises and come up with 15-minute different activities that they can do. So there's a little structure to it, and also the kids have to be creative making making the exercise routines up. That's an idea. It's sworkit.com. Is there anything they like to do? Yoga is good. Housekeeping, except vacuuming is
Are you doing that today?
I did my ILS yesterday, and I got all the laundry done and picked up before the kids came. So yeah, the listening, there's so many things you can do. I think the hardest thing is actually just putting it on the head first thing in the morning if you can. The other is if you have more than one child, have one do it every morning and one do it right after lunch. If you have a routine and set a habit of a certain time putting it on, what you do with it, that will evolve.
Wonderful. We had a question regarding the technology that we are all inundated with at this time. And it sounds like we answered part of this question. How do you do it with older children or teenagers, such as being creative, taking that time to do things to bake or otherwise? Also, how do you suggest encouraging boredom as a way of stimulating creativity?
Well, so when our oldest one was 5 years old, we started our summer every year until the youngest one was a senior in high school. The first 2 weeks of a summer vacation, if you could plug it in, you weren't allowed to use it. So they weren't asking for TVs or their Nintendo or anything else, and they were bored in the beginning. But by the second week, they were creative. So that boredom did have that creativity. And then when we turned on, we didn't have as much tech back then, but we did have Nintendo and television and videos, and they didn't ask for it as much because they had already learned to be creative. So creating that no screen time to have a little boredom and to troubleshoot what they like to do or what they learn, I think will help. But you're right, there will be a little bit of boredom, and that's not a bad thing.
Taking the first step is the hardest step.
Mm-hmm.
There was a humorous Xfinity commercial about a year ago where we deployed the new XFi control features, and it's a wonderful commercial featuring a mom at the dinner table, and everyone's got a device in their hand and they're all staring at it, and she turns off the Wi-Fi in the house for dinner, and they're dumbfounded how that happened. I mean, parents have to take some level of control, and it's very hard, and that first step is always the hardest, and there's tools that can help, but try to play to their passions and identify those things that are not on a screen that the kids can embrace. Taking a walk, going for a bike ride, doing some home exercise, those kinds of things.
And modeling that behavior. It's hard for us sometimes to get off of our screen. Yes, but one more minute as they're talking to us and we're sending off another text. No, we need to put our own phones down sometimes and have better eye contact.
Absolutely. I know. I received a notification yesterday on my phone that said how much screen time that I had last week, and it made me create a new goal for this week. So starting with us, it's a great plan. We have a question here, much to Michael's point earlier of, many of us are in different situations, maybe with the number of children at home. This question says, I'm struggling to manage 5 kids schooling at once. Any tips on how to manage time with so many different age levels and curriculums?
Then that's when we had to go to homeschooling at different times for different children. We actually had the older ones go in the evening. They liked to sleep in the morning. Then they had to help with the younger ones while we were homeschooling the middle ones, you know, so it was, we had to be creative with the time and give them some control of when they were going to be able to do it. I never thought I would be homeschooling at 8 o'clock at night. It wasn't a fun day because my day started very early in the morning. I was homeschooling till 11 o'clock at night. That was a tough, it didn't last forever, but it did last for a couple of months. You know, and this will not last forever, but for the next couple of months, if we accept the fact that we have to maybe do things on the weekend and do things at evening and have time, when we're doing it, we got to remember that we love these people. We love these little people and some of these people that are larger and bigger than us, but that we want to be with them and we want to create that connection with them, and that this is going to be hard and there might be less time for us. We do need to put our own masks on and we need to model that. But we also know that this too shall pass and this time is.
Yeah, and on that, I think we talked earlier about structure with flexibility. Previous to COVID, we all thought that school was a Monday through Friday thing that happened between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. or whatever. Now it's different. Maybe we don't need to do 7 hours a day to get done what needs to get done. Maybe we do it at night. Maybe we do it on the weekends. We have to work around mom or dad's work schedule, whatever it may be. But having that structure and flexibility, that delicate balance, can help get through 5 separate learning situations.
And I had to utilize our older ones at times to help with the younger ones. They also had to do the laundry and mop the floor. So they were really good at chores. And their wives so greatly appreciate that right now because they're all fantastic husbands and are phenomenal, two of them are being phenomenal homeschool dads right now because their wives both work. So.
Fantastic. So I have a question or more a topic for you guys to just touch on. I absolutely love the phrase, put your mask on first. How would you relate that to the SSP being regulated to then promote a little bit more regulation?
So the SSP, we utilize the SSP and the focus unit depending on what's the best time for our client, whether they're ready for the SSP right now. What we do, it is great for that regulation. Some of our clients need more focus before they can go on the SSP because it's actually can be too strong for some of our clients at first. We've put so many through the SSP. I just did the SSP, another reboot for myself 3 weeks ago. So I just did it again myself. I've done it, I think, 4 times. And I've done lots of boosters, so I really love it. It helps with that feeling of calm, and I think that to utilize it with the focus unit is phenomenal. Personally, as a provider, I really like it during this time because there's so much dysregulation and there's a lot of fear and anxiety. I really would like, if you have the SSP, to have a focus unit at home as well, because if there is any dysregulation, the calming program on the focus unit helps to support the SSP. So during this time when I can't go in and actually see my clients, because we're all virtual, we are utilizing the SSP. We just don't talk about it quite as much, and we do want to make sure that, personally, I think having the focus unit there alongside, if there's some dysregulation that happens, is important. Is that?
Wonderful. Yeah, great. Are there any other questions, guys, that you have for Kate and Michael at this time before we let them go for the rest of their day? Or Kate and Michael, is there anything else that you would like to add or offer our attendees today?
I would only add that certainly in these settings, sometimes people don't want to raise a question in a public setting, but they have a personal question or a private question. That's why I put Kate's email address up there. So please feel free to reach out and email her directly if you've got a follow-up question that comes to mind after we log off, or if you didn't want to bring it up on the call.
Perfect.
And yeah, going to that ear brain, eye brain connect, disconnect. I've got some great videos that I'm welcome to send you if you email me. If you have questions, what does she mean by eye brain? I can send you a video of what to look for.
Wonderful. And all of the attendees for today, you will receive this recording to review at those times where you need a little bit of a refresher on some of these tips and tricks. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kate and Michael. That was wonderful. Thank you for all of you who have attended today. We hope you guys have a wonderful Monday and a great rest of your week.
Hang in there, everybody.
You got this.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.